Let's talk a little bit more about controlling access. I break this up into two parts, the application itself as well as the data accessed from within. Now when it comes to the application, you're looking at things like who can access the app, who can access certain functionality within it, who can access a given component, whether it's a region, a page, an item, a button, whatever. That's application level for me. And for that, you're going to use authentication and authorization schemes within Apex. I've actually seen developers recreate these features because they simply didn't look in the shared components where they would have found them. Then the other half of the equation is data. And this has to do with what rows a given user can see, and for that you simply use where clauses most of the time.